Good morning to you. Well, the rehearsal is just finishing behind me by the podium. We've had the band playing from the Royal Welsh. They're going to be playing again in the procession, which will go from the Civic Hall down the High Street into the castle at around 11:30 this morning, ready for the Proclamation, which will take place here at midday. The emphasis, as you've been saying, has shifted away a little from London today to the other nations that make up the United Kingdom. Similar ceremonies, as we know, taking place in Northern Ireland and Scotland too. Today, the First Minister, Mark Drakeford, will be here, as well as the Mayor of Cardiff, and members of the public are being allowed in. There's a huge space, you can't see it from where you are, where members of the public will be allowed in. They've been queuing since first light, as you can imagine, but it's on a first-come, first-served basis. So the doors open at 10 o'clock, and the first 2,000 people will be allowed in. Everyone else will need to pack out onto the streets to watch the marching band, and 28 members of the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Welsh will be marching along with them. Of course, for the people in Wales, it's not just getting used to a new king. This is a new king that they feel they have special ownership over, being their former Prince of Wales. They've known him in that capacity, obviously, for nigh on 70 years now. Talking to people yesterday here in Wales, there's a mixed response to the concept of having a Prince and Princess of Wales. A lot of emotion, of course, as we can understand, around the term Princess of Wales. Anyone over the age of 35, 40 will understand that, will understand there's a lot of emotional weight to that title. But Princess Catherine has addressed that directly in the last few days. You know, she said that she's very conscious of the history behind that title. And we must remember that the original Princess of Wales, Princess Diana, just after her wedding, she came to Wales and made an amazing speech in Welsh, which really impressed the people here, because when the role of Prince of Wales was established by Edward I, Edward I said that he decreed that every Prince of Wales going forward must be able to speak fluent Welsh. Well, that's never happened. Prince Charles can speak a little Welsh, King Charles now, but he's by no means fluent. So when Princess Diana made that speech, the people here really took her to their heart. So it's hard for them to accept another Princess of Wales. But Princess Catherine has certainly made that a lot easier for them. Also, it's worth saying, and I don't want to sound churlish on a morning like today, but it's worth saying that a significant number of Welsh people don't want a Prince or Princess of Wales at all. They find the title quite divisive. There's a lot of history around that title. History that doesn't sit well with a lot of Welsh people. And a significant number of people said to me yesterday they wish they'd been consulted about whether they actually want to have a Prince and Princess of Wales. A Prince and Princess of Wales that aren't actually Welsh. But having said that, some people may feel that way, and they have a different relationship to the monarchy here in Wales compared to other parts of the United Kingdom. It's a little bit more of a grey area here than it is elsewhere. But the personalities involved, nobody I've spoken to can think of a bad word to say about Charles the man, William the man, Kate the woman, and of course Elizabeth herself. And there's a reason for that. And it's connected with the date 21st of October 1966. Now that was the day that 116 school children and 28 teachers and members of staff at a tiny primary school in Aberfan were killed when a slag heap of coal slipped down the hillside and engulfed the school. Now, the Queen took a while to respond to that. It was almost a week before she came to Aberfan, because up until that point, that was not something monarchs did. Monarchs didn't turn up at the roadside after a car crash or rush to a hospital after an incident. That wasn't their job. That was for the politicians. If you think about it, before then, The only time that had happened, that when the King and Queen had been out and about, like if you look at George V, who you were talking about, he would inspect the troops in the First World War, and Queen Mary, she would go and tour around the hospitals. That was the Queen Consort's role. So Queen Elizabeth II was the first monarch in history to rush to a crisis, to rush to where her people needed her the most. And she was spotted coming out of a cottage in a very famous photograph, coming out of a cottage where she'd just been talking to a family who had lost their little children in that terrible, terrible tragedy. And she wiped a tear from her eyes, and it was caught on camera. And that was the first sign ever of a monarch in British history showing affection, showing emotion, and communicating with their people at a time of crisis. And that one act in 1966 laid the path for the modern monarchy. It laid the path for Diana to come along and work so hard with so many charities and show so much empathy and support. It changed the face of the royal family, and it changed the way the Welsh people view the monarchy too. So until this day, rumblings of independence, rumblings of a republic have been closed down because of the deep love and respect the people of Wales feel for Her Majesty the Queen herself. Whether that continues to be the same level of respect with King Charles, we don't know. But what I can say is Charles has worked very hard over the years to build bridges, to repair damage that the role of Prince of Wales has created in Welsh society over the generations. He's been here frequently, he's studied here, he has made an attempt to learn the language, he's knowledgeable on Welsh history, on Welsh politics, and that goes a long way for the people of Wales. He is, they say, he was, they say, the first Prince of Wales ever to take that role seriously and to embrace it and become a member of this community. He actually bought a house in Wales, and none of the others have ever done that. So mixed emotions today, but mostly a sense of pride that their man, the erstwhile Prince of Wales, who did so much for this country, is now their king.